In the quiet countryside, where the rumble of engines and the laughter of bikers seemed out of place, one evening changed everything. A group of rowdy bikers rolled into town, their raucous behavior alarming the locals. Among them was Jake, known for his reckless antics. Their target, the farmer's daughter, Sarah, known for her gentle spirit and unwavering determination. Jake and his crew, fueled by bravado and alcohol, thought Sarah an easy mark. They taunted her, unaware of the quiet strength she inherited from her father, a man of few words but formidable presence. What they didn't know was that Sarah's father, David, harbored a secret, a past that made him both feared and respected among those who knew him. As tensions escalated, Sarah's resolve hardened. She stood her ground, a glint of defiance in her eyes. But as the confrontation reached its peak, the evening took an unexpected turn. The bikers, sensing they had underestimated Sarah and her family, found themselves facing a force they had never anticipated. And with Sarah's father stepping into the fray, the true story was about to unfold. The air grew tense as David approached, his steady footsteps cutting through the bikers' laughter. Sarah stood her ground, her heart pounding but her resolve unshaken. She knew her father well. His calm exterior masked a history he rarely spoke of, one that left people whispering when his name was mentioned. David's presence alone seemed to quiet the chaos, though Jake's crew didn't notice the shift. They smirked and sneered, brushing him off as just another farmer. But Jake caught something in David's eyes, something sharp, like the glint of a blade, and it made him hesitate for the first time. Word of the commotion had started to spread. Neighbors watched from a distance, some with curiosity, others with concern. David didn't raise his voice, but when he spoke, his words carried weight. "Leave now," he said, his tone steady but firm. The bikers exchanged nervous glances. Who was this man? And why did his calmness feel so unnerving? Jake's smirk faded as David stepped closer. The bikers stood frozen, caught between their bravado and a strange unease they couldn't shake. Sarah remained silent, watching her father, her faith in him unshaken despite the growing tension. She had seen glimpses of his strength before, but even she didn't fully understand the depth of the man who had raised her. Jake tried to reclaim control, laughing loudly to break the silence. "What are you gonna do, old man?" he sneered. His words echoed in the stillness, but they sounded hollow. David didn't flinch, his steady gaze locked on Jake. "You don't know what you're messing with," he replied, his voice low but commanding. One of the younger bikers, uneasy with the situation, whispered to Jake, "Maybe we should go." But Jake shrugged him off, determined to assert dominance. He didn't realize his arrogance was leading them into something they weren't prepared for. Meanwhile, in the shadows, one of the neighbors, an older man who had known David for years, muttered under his breath. "They're about to learn why no one crosses that family." His words carried an ominous weight, leaving those who overheard him uneasy. David remained calm, but there was a shift in his stance, a quiet warning. The bikers were too focused on appearances to see what everyone else could. This wasn't going to end how they thought. The air felt heavy, the quiet stretch of road now a stage for an unseen storm brewing. Jake, desperate to hold his ground, stepped forward, fists clenched. "We're not scared of you," he said, though his voice wavered just enough for David to notice. The bikers behind him shuffled nervously, their earlier bravado slipping as they sensed something bigger at play. David didn't react, his calm demeanor more unstilling than any threat could be. He glanced at Sarah, who gave him a slight nod. It was a silent exchange, one that spoke of trust and understanding. She stepped back, her confidence in her father unwavering. The bikers were still laughing, louder now, their mockery masking unease. Jake threw out another taunt, But this time, David's reply cut through their noise like a knife. "You're out of your depth," he said quietly. His words hung in the air, and for a moment, even Jake looked unsure. Then, with a sudden, deliberate move, David reached into his pocket. The bikers tensed, the illusion of control they had clung to now crumbling. "What is he doing?" one of them muttered, stepping back instinctively. Jake's eyes darted around, his confidence unraveling as the quiet authority of the farmer began to feel like something far more dangerous. David didn't flinch, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he knew the power of the suspense he was creating. Every eye was on him now, even the neighbors watching from their windows, holding their breath. The truth about David's past, whatever it was, felt like it was seconds away from being revealed, and no one could look away. David pulled a small, weathered whistle from his pocket, its metallic glint catching the fading sunlight. The bikers exchanged confused glances, unsure what to make of this seemingly insignificant object. Jake let out a forced laugh, trying to mask his unease. "What's that supposed to do? Call for backup?" he mocked, though his voice lacked its earlier edge. David's response was measured, his tone steady. "Something like that." Without another word, he raised the whistle to his lips and blew. The sound was sharp and piercing, cutting through the stillness and echoing across the open fields. For a moment, nothing happened. The bikers laughed again, louder this time, their nerves spilling over. But then, faintly at first, came the sound of heavy footsteps, multiple sets, approaching quickly. From the edge of the woods bordering the farm, shadows began to emerge. Men and women, locals armed with tools and determined expressions, stepped into the light. They were farmers, neighbors and workers, people who had quietly observed the confrontation and decided it was time to act. Each one moved with purpose, their unity a silent show of support for David and Sarah. The bikers froze, their bravado fading entirely as they realized they were now outnumbered. Jake's crew started to murmur among themselves, panic creeping into their voices. "We didn't sign up for this," one of them whispered, backing away slightly. Jake, now visibly shaken, tried to maintain control. "Don't let them scare you. They're just farmers," he shouted, though the quiver in his voice betrayed him. David remained calm, his gaze locked on Jake. "You came here thinking you could bully us," he said, his voice carrying a quiet strength. "But you don't understand what it means to stand together." The bikers were cornered, their arrogance unraveling as they faced the unexpected alliance before them. But just as the tension reached its peak, a sudden noise from behind stopped everyone in their tracks, turning all eyes toward the farmhouse. Something, or someone, was coming, and it promised to change everything. As the crowd turned toward the farmhouse, the door creaked open slowly. A tall figure stepped out, silhouetted by the dim light from inside. It was a man no one in the group recognized except David. His expression softened ever so slightly, though his presence remained commanding. The man, rugged and weathered, carried himself with an air of quiet authority that silenced even the rowdiest bikers. The locals exchanged whispers, piecing together the identity of this stranger. "Could it be?" one murmured. Jake, now visibly rattled, tried to mask his unease. "Who's this supposed to be? Another farmer?" he spat, though his voice cracked. David's eyes never left Jake as he spoke, his words calm but firm. "This is my brother, Caleb." The revelation hung in the air, sending a ripple of confusion and unease through the bikers. David continued, "You thought you were dealing with a simple farmer, but you never stopped to wonder why this family is left in peace." Caleb stepped forward, his presence alone enough to make the bikers shrink back. He carried no weapon, yet the way he moved, the confidence in his step, spoke volumes. "I used to handle men like you for a living," Caleb said quietly, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "So let me give you a piece of advice. Walk away before this gets worse." Jake's crew, now thoroughly shaken, began backing away, their earlier bravado long gone. Even Jake faltered, his defiance slipping as he realized the depth of his mistake. Just when it seemed the bikers were retreating, Caleb added one more thing. "And if you think about coming back, just know, this community doesn't forget." His words were a final warning, sealing the bikers' decision to leave without another word. As the rumble of their motorcycles faded into the distance, the crowd began to disperse, murmurs of relief and admiration filling the air. Sarah turned to her father, a small smile of gratitude on her face. But David, ever the quiet protector, simply nodded. Caleb placed a hand on David's shoulder. "Still keeping the peace, I see," he said with a knowing smile. The night returned to its calm, but the bikers would remember this lesson for years to come. A lesson about the strength of family, community, and the secrets held by those who seemed the most unassuming. As the dust settled and the sounds of the motorcycles faded into the night, the farm returned to its peaceful quiet. The neighbors who had come to stand by David and Sarah exchanged a few words of encouragement before heading home, their bond stronger than ever after the events of the evening. The unity they had shown reminded everyone of the power of community. How strength isn't always about who shouts the loudest, but who stands together when it matters most. Inside the farmhouse, Sarah and David sat at the kitchen table with Caleb. The weight of the evening began to lift, replaced by a sense of calm. "I didn't know if you'd actually show up," David said to Caleb, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "You called," Caleb replied simply. "That's all I needed." For Sarah, it was a moment of pride. She realized the legacy her father carried wasn't just about his strength, but the quiet courage and wisdom he passed on. As the moon rose over the fields, the three of them sat together, their connection unshaken. It was a reminder that no matter what storms came their way, they could weather them together.